What do you think is unique about this chord progression? It has a link that is missing from many chord progressions, which allows it to have a better flow. So in this video, I'm going to reveal what this missing link is, how it can be constructed in several ways, and how you can use it to bridge the gaps in your own chord progressions. One of the oldest structures created by humans are bridges. Built to span a physical obstacle, like a valley or river, modern life would be much more difficult without the use of bridges. And as a bridge can span different lengths, two notes in a chord can also span different distances. The distance between two notes in music is called an interval. Chords are just a series of intervals played together. For example, major chords are constructed with two third intervals, one major and one minor. A major third interval is 4 semitones or half steps, a minor third is 3 half steps. So to create a C major chord, you start on C, then count up 4 half steps and get to E. These are the two notes in your first major third interval. Then from E, count up 3 half steps, or a minor third, to G. This gives you the notes in the C major chord, C, E and G. 3-note chords are also known as triads. Whilst bridges are useful for a function in society, they can also be expensive to build. Sometimes you need to find a smaller gap to bridge to get the job done at the right price. But what happens if you want to create a smaller bridge in your chords? What if you use 2 minor third intervals? Let's start on C again and then count up 3 half steps. This gets you to E flat. Then from E flat, count up 3 half steps again, which takes you to G flat. C, E flat and G flat create a C diminished chord. Diminished chords feature naturally in major keys as the 7 chord, but they are the ugly duckling and are used the least of any of the major key chords. Part of the reason for this is the tension they create. It's not to everyone's taste, but this also opens up an opportunity for you as a songwriter and could be the missing link that your progressions need. You can use the diminished chord like a bridge for your progressions. It can work in a number of ways and in different locations depending on what you need. The traditional use of the 7 chord in major keys is as a dominant function chord, which leads strongly back to the tonic 1 chord. Listen to it at work in this example in the key of C major. Bridges can come in all sorts of types and designs, whether it's an arch, cantilever, suspension, or one of many other styles. Engineers have always looked for different ways to solve the same problem of spanning a distance. And like a bridge, your diminished chords can also come in different varieties. These include diminished 7th chords and half diminished chords, also known as minor 7 flat 5. These add a 4th note to the diminished triad. You can think of this like another span of intervals in the diminished bridge. Let's look again at the C diminished chord with the notes C, E flat and G flat. If you count up 3 half steps, a minor third interval, from G flat you get to A. This creates a C diminished 7th chord. So the diminished 7th chord contains all minor third intervals. If you go back to the diminished chord, and this time count up a major third interval at the end, you get a different chord. Here's the C diminished chord again. Count up 4 half steps from G flat, and now you get to B flat. C, E flat, G flat and B flat create a C half diminished chord. These chords are also known as minor 7 flat 5. That's because you can also create them by taking the notes of the minor 7th chord and dropping the 5th note by half a step. So what's the point in these chords? Well, they add an extra flavour or interest to a progression. So you can just try them out where you use diminished chords and see what you think. They can also be used to accommodate certain notes in your melody if you are matching chords to a melody or vice versa. Let's have a listen to them as the 7 chord in the previous progression example. Please note that the B diminished 7 chord is not diatonic to the C major key as it uses the A flat note. If you want an easy to use guide with 7 simple songwriting keys, as well as 6 popular chord progressions, then head to majorkeychords.com and download your free copy today. Link is also in the description. Bridges can be used in lots of different situations in order to carry different types of traffic. You might have a simple footbridge that people can walk over, a strong bridge designed to carry a large highway, or even an iconic railway bridge. In a similar way, diminished chords can be used in several situations in your progressions to bridge different sorts of chord gaps. Previously, I showed you a diatonic major key example. These were in the key as the 7 chord. Where you get some more interesting and powerful examples is by using non-diatonic diminished chords from outside of the key. These really are the missing link, bridging your diatonic chords and tying them together in new and interesting ways. To think about this, look at the 7 notes in the C major scale: C, D, E, F, G, A and B. Each note is used as a root note for the 7 chords in the key of C major. But what about the 5 remaining notes? In this case, these are sharps or flats, also known as accidentals or the black keys on the piano. You can use these as root notes for diminished chords, and these diminished chords can become powerful bridges between the other chords in your major key chord progressions. You can go ahead and use these 5 diminished chords wherever you like, but you'll see some of them used more than others, and like a bridge, they are more effective when spanning certain gaps. Let's start with the diminished chord built on the flat 2nd or sharp 1st scale degree. In the key of C major, this would be C sharp diminished. This chord can be a useful bridge between the 1 chord and the 2 chord. It can also be referred to as the 7 of 2. Here's an example of this. You can also use the chord as an approach to the 2 chord, regardless of what is heard before it. The next popular use of this technique is with the diminished chord built on the flat 5th or sharp 4th scale degree. In the key of C major, this would be F sharp diminished. This chord is a nice bridge between 4 and 5. I'm going to turn to the guitar for the next example. Diminished chords can often be tricky to finger on the guitar. This is where one of the diminished chord varieties can be useful. I'm going to play a 1, 4, 7 of 5, 5 progression. In the key of C major, these chords would be C major, F sharp diminished, and G major. You can see that F sharp diminished would be a challenging chord to play on guitar, but if you play it as an F sharp half diminished chord, also known as F sharp minor 7 flat 5, then it is a bit easier. Here's how that sounds. Another common diminished bridge is between 5 and 6 chords. This is built from the flat 6th or sharp 5th scale degree. In the key of C major, this would be G sharp diminished. I'll use the very common, but not always loved, 1, 5, 6, 4 progression to demonstrate this. The diminished chord can also be written as 7 of 6. I'll play it as a diminished 7 chord on this occasion to hear how that sounds between the 5 chord G major and the 6 chord A minor. The remaining 2 diminished chords are not commonly used in popular music, but you will encounter them more in jazz, so feel free to experiment with them if you want to. Remember that any of these chords could be used as a simple approach to the relevant target chord. You don't always have to use them as a bridge. For example, look at this progression in the key of C major, where I use all 3 as quarter note approach chords to the A minor, D minor and G chords. I'm going to put this all together now in a longer C major key example. You can see it on screen now. I'll play the 7 of 6 as a bridge between 5 and 6 in bar 2. Then in the final bar, I'll end the progression with the diminished 7, 7 of 5, moving into the dominant 7, 5 chord. Listen to how this brings a really strong pull back around to the 1 chord on repeat. I have to admit at this point that you might have just wasted your time. The thing is, everything I just told you is completely useless if you don't know how to create major key chord progressions. Watch the video on screen next to learn a really simple chord progression system.